So this is the instructional video for the 40K Conquest Excel Tourney Tracker, Tourney Manager that I put together. So we're open here on the Information tab, and this basically has just the information for the various worksheets that are in the workbook. So troubleshooting, README, player list, standings, pairings manual, pairings and pairings manual, round sheets, player sheets, and so on and so forth. So the first place, this is informational. I will also keep version information down here. So as I release updated versions, be they for error correction, changes in the rules, what have you, I'll put the changes down there. So once you get used to this, you won't be using that, you won't be looking at that information tab very much. The player list is where we really begin. So this is up to 150 players. I've gone ahead and pre-registered 12 people into here. It will give you a tally up in this thing saying 12 live players are registered for this. It will give you, based on what we know of Netrunner, Game of Thrones, and other LCGs, I've populated with this number of players in a non-premier FFG event. They suggest a certain number of Swiss, there are a certain number of rounds in the Swiss only tournament. Okay. If you need help, cells with the help in the parentheses include instructions and hints on how to use this worksheet. So if you click on those, and they only appear on the first couple worksheets, because I figure after the first couple, they get annoying. But you can use this. So this gives you some information on how to do these things, how to use this worksheet. And I've gone ahead and entered in various names into this. I've also entered, now if you want to, you're welcome to capture their city, their state, and their email address for informational purposes, getting them on various communication groups and so on and so forth. It allows also you to enter their warlord, okay, from a drop-down list, okay, and it's color-coded. Once you enter a warlord, you can easily just type it in and it'll pre-populate it for you. And then it asks for a second faction as well. It does not check whether the second faction is a legal second faction, so please take note that I'm not going to do that kind of legal. I'm not going to do that kind of logic. You guys are perfectly capable of doing that kind of thing yourselves. And this is, right now I don't have an analytics page. I'm waiting a little bit longer before I put that analytics page together because I want to make it mean something to people. So after there's enough discussion about what we want to know about how the game plays and what information we want from each of these tournaments, then I can put that together. But this is in advance of that. And for informational purposes already, you can see how many people are playing as the second faction. They're playing a lot of Space Marines in this scenario. They're pretty well spread out amongst the warlords. Okay. I've pre-populated this. This is the randomized, so you enlist your folks there, but then you randomize their names for first assignment here. Okay, and this is where they're also assigned their player number. Okay, for the purposes of FFG's official site. So I've gone ahead and put those in. As you're putting them in, there'll be a check. The system will check and see if you have a name in the list. So if you make a typo, it'll give you an error. Okay, this name does not appear in the list of players. Check for typos. Buys and super buys are okay. So we cancel. Okay. If Gaunt was getting a buy, we would enter in buy and say okay. Okay, but he's not. So we'll enter in Eric instead. Once I entered in Eric, I said 12 live players are entered. So it has this number matches the number of live players that have been registered. Okay. All right. So then we're ready to go. So you've got your randomized. You've enrolled your folks. You've randomized them and assigned them their first matches, and you're ready to go. So you go all the way to round one sheet, and you'll see their matches are set up there. Enter in a time. Okay, we called time at 12:01 p.m. And later on, Nate won. So we use the drop-down menu to see these wins. Okay, There's a win, a modified win, a draw, a loss, a modified loss, a bye, a drop, and a super bye. Obviously, the super bye and the drop are probably not, well, maybe the drop will happen. Super buys won't happen for a while, but they're in there. Mostly because I built this tournament spreadsheet from the Netrunner spreadsheet that I created a while back and have still maintained. So I'm allowing for the super buy to exist in the 40K conquest structure. Now, you might ask why modified loss and a loss. Well, because you're entering in the information for Brad, and then the result for Brenda will populate. So if Brad had a modified loss, then Brenda has a modified win. You click over here, and you see that, oh, sure enough, the match points are matching up. So then it populates based on the match result, it populates the match points for that particular person. Modified win, draw, and this little window will disappear after the first 4. It's only here on the first 4 matches just to remind you what to do. Okay, you had a draw, you had a win, and Gaunt always wins, so he won this one. Okay, and you can fill these in as they complete. Now, as far as the pairings go for the later rounds, the first round is always randomized, and you did that in the player list. The second round and following rounds will be based on, if you're going to use FFG's, what I consider to be a Swiss half kind of system, which I have to admit is kind of strange. It's from what I've discussed with other people, it's almost impossible to automate because you always have a potential of a lot of people in one group one time, but then very few of them in that same group the next time. So what I've done is if you want to follow FFG's line of rules as they exist right now, and you don't have to do that because all the tournaments we have so far are casual. When it comes to around the store championships time, you have to follow the letter of the FFG law, right? So I've put this in here. I've grouped them. So you have a score group of 1, and here are your rated players. So if you want to do this I've provided this to you so you can do it easily by hand. So by hand, you would assign Nate to play Monica, and then Gaunt would play Brenda because it's an odd number, and then Carl would play Alicia, Tobin would play Brad, Mark would play John, and Matt would play Eric. Okay, so because it's just in the order just like that, as I would copy these and put them, copy and then paste values only. I'm just pasting the values. Okay, and so far from what we see, the indicator here says yay, no duplicate matches. Okay, so these people are not being paired up with somebody else again. Okay, now let's say I didn't want to do that. If I wanted to follow True Swiss. For casual, you can follow True Swiss, and it's even more automated. Okay, so if you go to Pairings Swiss, this is a True Swiss pairing system. Okay, so it randomizes within the group, which is something that the FFG rules explicitly state they don't want to do, which I'm still not exactly clear on why that is. Oh, so I just want to copy this. I go to round 2, I paste values, and we're good. Now, if you want to see the standings, here are the standings on the standing sheet. Yay, Gaunt, Monica, and Nate have done quite well, Brenda and Carl, okay, and so on. So we go back to round 2. We make sure, if you want to have these enter in the time must be entered in order for this worksheet to be counted amongst the results. So Gaunt wins because he always does. We'll have a loss, and then Carl will beat me, and there's a loss, a win, and a loss. Okay, so that's the results of round 2. We go to standings to see standings. Okay, and not only does it have their total match points and their strength of schedule, but it also has their round 1 and round 2 opponents, so you can see who they've played. Okay. So for round 3, I'm going to go to Pairings. I'm going to copy this. This is a True Swiss method, okay, because it's just easier to do in the automation. I paste. If you're not using the automated system, if you're doing it by hand, then you would probably have this page open here, write it down on a piece of paper, and then enter them in to these into the round sheets as they sit on your piece of paper. Okay. Now, as you can see, there's a possible error or duplicate match. Okay. So when this signal comes up here, this red one here, you want to go back to your standings window and look and say, oh look, Tobin and Alicia did play each other. So Tobin played Alicia in round 1, and he's set to play Alicia in round 3, and so on and so forth. So they played each other in round 1. So we have to switch those. So what I will do is I'll look at the group, and I'll just take Alicia, and I'll match her up with Eric. I'll switch Eric and Alicia's places. Okay. So Eric will play here, Alicia will play here. Now we go. Now, if you misspell her, you're going to have a possible error. Okay, so if you misspell her name, you get a possible error there. So we'll go with Alicia. Okay, and I'm not married to these colors. It's a little hard to see on the screen. So if you have any feedback on the colors I could use, take it. Give it to me. All right. So then we have match results. Win. Oops. Cancel. So we win, and then we win and lose and win. And I'm going to win one and then lose. Okay? So that's the end of round 3. We go to our standings. Now, why isn't it including round 3 standings? Well, because I didn't enter in a start time. So this start time toggles this sheet to be included in the calculations. Okay? It doesn't matter if you actually enter the start time that you used or not. It's helpful to do so because then you can come back and look. But you need to have a time in there for them to be counted amongst the standings. And see, here we see our standings. Okay. Now, if you want to print out these things at any time, off on the very end here is a print pairings, and you can select the round you want to print. Okay. Or 3. Okay. So for larger tournaments, you would probably do this and then print it off and then post it, right? So that's, I usually leave it at 1. Print standings, if you want to print standings, it will always print standings as of the rounds completed. Okay, so you can print that off as well. Now, how do you have players record their wins and losses? I've included, based on the Netrunner tournament sheets that they've had us complete before, especially at the plugged-in tour and the ones that they provide for on their website. This is the one I've provided for Warhammer 40K. It's simple: player name, warlord, second faction, and you can assign them a player number beforehand, or you can leave that blank. That's just there for your use, so you can randomize them later, right? So you write that down during your randomization process. So then here are their opponents: win, loss, draw, or modified win, modified loss, so on and so forth. And you're welcome to print that out. They print out two per sheet in landscape. And then once you have your standings, now there is an analytics sheet on here that's hidden right now. Okay, it has analytics that don't work because for the most part they're from the Netrunner legacy stuff that I use for the Netrunner worksheet. As I said, once I get the analytics, once we figure out what we want as a community, what we want to know from each of these tournaments as a community, I can create, at least to the best of my ability, not knowing what they are, I can do my best to create those analytics, have it tally up. Okay, so we have right now total match points, strength of schedule, and so these are the 2 tiebreakers. Now, in the scenario they put in the rules, they say that if a person in a group has beat every other person in the group, that's the first tiebreaker. So if Monica and Matt have played, right, and so in this case, Monica and Matt are in the same group. Monica and Matt have played, and they looks like they played in round 1. So we'll go to round 1 and see that Monica beat Matt. And the rules say that if the one person has beat all the other people in the group, in the score group, then they win the tiebreaker. I don't see how that wouldn't be possible, because I don't know that that would be possible, because you would probably not have the same score as the people in your group if you beat all the people in your group, unless it's a very long tournament. Okay, so Monica has played Matt, and they ended up with the same score, but Monica has a better strength of schedule because Matt did so well. Okay, and that's it. So there you are. Gaunt, Brenda, Monica, and Matt are your top 4, and they're your winners. And so that's after 3 rounds. If you want to go a 4th round, you just copy and paste these in here. Again, paste values. You see a duplicate match. Let's go to standings. Oh yeah, look at all these people that played each other. So Monica and Matt will have to differentiate. Carl and Tobin will have to move. Okay, so let's go to round 4. We'll just go with this. Carl and Monica. And did that solve the problem? Yep. And then Nate and John have already played each other. So Nate and John have played each other. Let's see here. And they're in the group unto themselves. So Nate would play Alicia and John would play Eric. Nate would play Alicia and John would play Eric. John would play, and Nate would play Alicia. Nate. Okay? And then we have no duplicate matches. We put in our results. Again, if you try to put in something that it doesn't like, it won't like you. Loss, win, win, loss. Okay? And again, you got to put in the time. And then you go to your standings, and you see that Gaunt is 4-0. Okay? Matt went 3-1. Brenda went 2-1 with a modified win, or 3-1 with a modified win. Okay? And you have tiebreakers. Monica played Nate. And did she beat Nate? She played Nate in round 3. Monica beat Nate. Okay, so that'll be interesting to watch how often if that scenario comes up that they put in the rules. And that's it, folks. So there are your top 20 player sheets, round sheets. It goes all the way up to round 6, 150 players. If the community grows like a weed, then we might have to add more. But otherwise, this should do it for a while at least. Please give me feedback if there's any errors, and highly unlikely that it's error free. So I put this together pretty quickly. Hopefully this helps. Thanks.